Hello students, today we are going to understand ICSE chapter on algorithms and flowcharts. It's of class 8. So let's start. Okay. So first let us try to understand what is problem solving techniques. It's simple, like from the name itself we can understand problem solving techniques. That means the steps that we follow to solve any problem. Right? To solve any problem, what are the steps that we take? Like when you make a recipe, right? A recipe is a problem solving technique, we can call it, right? Like when you make anything, a cake or something, so we have a defined set of steps that we follow, right? So that is known as problem solving techniques. In the same way, programmers use different steps or techniques to write a program. Even in programs, you know what are programs. It's a set of instruction we give to computer to do a certain task, right? So programmers also use different steps or techniques to write a program. What are they? Techniques, algorithms and flowcharts. Clear? Now, before writing the program, we must analyze the problem and then write the steps required to solve it, right? So if you get any problem, right, if you have to write a program for any task, right, first we have to analyze that, right, and then we can write the steps for that. So what is algorithm? Algorithm is a set of steps arranged in a sequential manner to solve a problem or complete a task. So an algorithm is a set of steps that we arrange in a sequential manner to solve any problem or complete a task. Like for example, very basic example of brushing your teeth, right? So we have a set of defined steps to brush your teeth, right? First, you have to take your brush. Second, take the toothpaste. Third, apply the toothpaste on the brush, right? Fourth, start brushing your teeth. So till the time your teeth is not clean, keep brushing, right? So these are the set of defined steps in a sequential manner to solve any problem or complete any task. So that is algorithm. Algorithm can be said as the building blocks of programs. We can say algorithm is the building blocks of computers programs. It is written in we write algorithm in a very simple English language which is easy to understand by anyone. Clear? So algorithm is a sequence. Algorithm is a sequence of steps or computer operation which collectively solve a given problem. You just remember very simply what is algorithm. It is a set of steps that we arrange in a sequential manner to solve any program, to solve any task or any problem. Now, who was credited with the evolution of this algorithm? It is Ada Lovelace. Clear? Like similarly, even when you make a cake, right, we follow a recipe. Recipe is nothing but a algorithm that we follow, right? Like you're making a cake, so it's like the first thing you will take all the inputs, your ingredients, right? That will be your inputs. Then to mix all this in a proper quantity, that is your processing that you're doing, right? And then finally you get your cake as the output. So in any algorithm we generally have this kind of steps. You have an input where the things you need to perform, so that is your input. Then you process that input, whatever you have taken, and finally you get the output. Clear? I hope it's clear. Now let's move on to the characteristic of a good algorithm. Now let's try to understand what are some of the characteristics to write a good algorithm. Okay. So we'll for all these characteristics, we'll try to see from our example of a recipe of cake making. Okay. So the first characteristic is precision. Each step is precisely defined. So like in a making of a cake, you define each step precisely. Like, okay, take 10 grams of flour, mix 2 tablespoons of sugar to that, 1 spoon of cocoa powder, whatever. It is like very precisely you define each of your step. That is your precision. So a good algorithm should be precisely defined each step. Second, uniqueness. Uniqueness in the sense the result of each step can be uniquely identified, only depends on the result of preceding steps. Okay, now I have for making of a cake, the steps like first I have to take all flour, sugar, cocoa powder, milk, or whatever you require, all that ingredients I have to take. Now based on what ingredients I have taken, I will mix it. So based on whatever steps we define, each step will give me a unique result. Like when I mix that, the consistency of the dough that is firm, how it should be. So each step needs to be defined with a certain uniqueness in it. Okay. Then we have finiteness. Now finiteness, what does that mean? So each step has to be finite. It should stop after a certain time. It should not go on and on in a loop, right? Like take an example of brushing of your teeth. Like I'll keep on brushing my teeth till my teeth are clean, right? Once my teeth is clean, I'll stop, right? So it shouldn't go on and on. It has to have a finite number of instructions, correct? Similarly, like in your recipe, like I say add 2 tablespoons of sugar. So it should be 2 tablespoons. I shouldn't keep on going on adding and adding more number of. It has to be finite number of instructions. Like so, in any algorithm, the instructions or the steps that we write, it has to be finite. It cannot go on and on in a loop forever. Okay. Now the fourth is well-defined input. You know, in any algorithm or any steps you are writing, we have certain inputs. Like in your recipe, you have all the inputs of flour, sugar. These are all my inputs, right? In brushing of a teeth, I have input of a brush and a toothpaste. That's my input, correct? So we should have well-defined input in any algorithm. Okay. So my algorithm should clearly specify what my input should be. Similarly, I should have well-defined output. Okay, so my algorithm should clearly specify and say what the output of the algorithm should be, the final output. Clear? So it should have well-defined output. Last, effectiveness. The algorithm should be efficient in terms of time or space. Space we consider when we are writing computer programs, right? We have to make sure we utilize the space, the memory space properly, right? So the effectiveness of the algorithm is very important. Key, my algorithm should be efficient in time and space. So what are the different characteristics of good algorithm? We have precision, means each step should be precisely defined, means 10 grams of sugar or 10 grams of flour, whatever. Uniqueness, the result of each step can be uniquely identified. Like each step should give me a unique result, right? And that depends on your preceding step. Finiteness means my step shouldn't go on in a loop, or it should have infinite number of steps. It should have finite number of steps my algorithm should have, right? Then it should have well-defined input. The inputs in my algorithm should be well-defined. Then output, I should have a well-defined and a precise output for my algorithm. And last is the effectiveness. The algorithm should be efficient in terms of time and space. Clear? Now let's move on to usage of an algorithm. Now see, algorithm, as you have understood, it helps us to think logically, right? To find out the best possible solution of a problem or a task, right? So it helps to increase our logical power, right? A good algorithm helps us to write very effective and an efficient program. Okay, now here if you see, we have written it performs data processing, right? So algorithm is commonly used for data processing, performing logical and methodical operation, manipulating data and searching for a particular data. So these are the few uses that has been given here, but with this additionally it helps us to increase our logical thinking power, right? And it helps us to write a very efficient and effective computer programs. Okay, now we'll quickly move on to writing an algorithm. Okay, now to write an algorithm, you know, we need to have certain defined steps, right? Now we'll go over the examples of your book one by one and try to understand, right? So now first example is we have to write an algorithm to find product, sum and difference of two numbers a and b. See, when you're reading the problem, first try to find out what is my input here and what is the output required, and in the middle what processing I have to do. These three things is very important: input, output and the processing that you need to do. So in this example, if you see, it's algorithm to find product, sum and difference of two numbers a and b. So my input here will be a and b because that's a two number I have to find, and my output I have to find what? I have to find product, sum and difference. So these three are my output and input is my a and b, right? So how will I start writing my algorithm? The very first step is always start and the last step is always stop. This please remember, student. Now in between start and stop, all my steps are different. Okay, so the first step will be my what? Read. I have to read the two numbers a and b from the user. So first will be read two numbers and store them in a variable or something, right? Now I have to find the product. That means I have to multiply these two numbers that I have input. So my next step will be multiply two numbers a and b and store the result in product. Product is my variable name. Okay, I hope you all know what is variables in programs, right? Where we store a value, right? So here we have input two numbers a and b, store them in a variable a and b, and then we multiply that two numbers, store that in product, and then we print that because we have to find. Then I have to find the sum, which is the addition of two numbers. So I'll write my next. See, in very simple English these steps are written. Now my fifth step is add the two numbers, store them in sum, then print sum. Last I have to find the difference. That means I have to subtract, right? So subtract the number b from a, store the result in difference and print it, and then stop. This is a very simple algorithm. We have it for algorithm. Now let's move on to the next algorithm to compare two numbers. Now see here, just think, what is your input? Input is very simple. From the this you can make out a and b are my two inputs, right? Now what is output here? Output here will be which one is greater. I have to compare, right? Which one is greater and which one is the smaller out of the two numbers, right? You compare. So output will be my less than or greater than equal to that I have to find out, right? So what I'll write, start. As I said, step one is always start. Then I'll read two numbers, store them in a and b, correct? Now compare the two numbers. Now I'll compare a and b. Now how will you compare? So first I'll find out if a is greater than b or less than b, whatever. So here they are writing if a is less than b, print a is smaller and go to step 7. Directly stop. So if I get a is less than b, I'll directly go to step 7 and stop. But next, if a is not, see here they have added a extra line. You could have done it in 2 lines also. See, I will check if a is less, because they are checking equal to also, right? So that's why this 3. So first my 3 checks are here. If a is greater than b, if it is, then I'll print a is greater, go to stop. Then the next will be if a is less than b, correct? Then a is smaller and then go to end again. And the third will be my if both of these conditions are not getting satisfied. What does that mean? A is equal to b, that means neither a is less than b, neither B is less than A, so that means they are equal. So that means if here this check you don't need to do, you can directly print A and B are equal. But anyways, if you put this extra check, this doesn't hamper your program, right? So if A is equal to B, print A and B. So here when you're comparing two numbers, so we are comparing three things, right? If a number is less than or a greater than or equal to. Okay, it's a very simple program, right? Okay, clear? Now let's try to, before moving to flowchart, let's try to solve some more examples of algorithm. So let's see if we have any questions. Okay, so see here I have to swap two numbers using a temporary variable. Okay, so what does this question mean basically? So if I have a value maybe 5 in a variable A and I have value suppose 9 in variable B, I have to swap these two. Means now A will have 9 and B will have 5. Now let's try to write and see how it happens. Okay, now here I have a variable A with value suppose 5. Okay, another variable B with value suppose 9. So what should be my output? Output should be, I'll swap this two, means at the output my algorithm will have A is equal to 9 and B is equal to 5. So this is my input. Okay, input will be like this. I will have two numbers enter in two variables. Okay, and then I will have the output where I'll swap it. Okay, so how will your algorithm be, tell me? So see, so this is what I input and output we have understood. Now what should be the processing? See, they have written I can use a temporary variable. So what I can do, simply what I can write, maybe I'll take a third variable C. First I'll store the value of A in C. So C is equal to A I'll do. So that means what does this mean? C is equal to 5, correct? Now I will write A. Okay, now I will write, yeah, now I'll write A is equal to B. So what does this mean? A became the value, A has this value of 9 now, right? And then finally I'll write B is equal to C. Now C was having the variable value of A, which is 5. So I'll write B is equal to C. That means B became 5. So see, I have swapped. Finally A became 9 and B became 5. Is it clear? Now let's try to write. How will you write the algorithm for this, right? So my input will be, so your first step as I said will always be start, correct? Your second step is input two numbers, okay, and store in variable A and B. Okay, now what will be your third? Now take a new variable C. Now what will be my fourth? I have taken that variable. Now I have to just store the value of A in C, and then I will make A as B, and then finally B as C. That means B will become A, right? So take a new variable C now. Store, or you can write, take a new variable C, make C is equal to A. Okay, now here next step will be make A is equal to B. Third step, make B is equal to C. Now output A and B, and then you have stop. Okay, now see here, if you see the steps, try to see the step. See here, start the first step, then I'll input two numbers, A as 5 and B as 9. Suppose I input these two numbers. I'll take another new variable C. So I will make C is equal to A. C is equal to A means C will become what? 5. 5 because A is having value 5, so C will become my 5, correct? Now here I am make A is equal to B. So, when I do A is equal to B, that means I am making A is equal to 9 because B has a value of 9, right? This I am just giving you an example. It can be any number, not 5 and 9, okay? So now my B is 9. So now if I make A is equal to B, that means A is becoming 9, correct? Now here I am making B is equal to C, correct? So when I make B is equal to C, what is the value of C that was having? C was having is 5, correct? So B will become 5, correct? Now can you see A became 9, B became 5. So I have swapped my values into variable C. Then output A and B, fine. Is it clear? I hope it's clear. If any doubt, you can comment me. I can answer that out. Okay. Now let's try to write an algorithm for one more. Okay. So we have to find the compound interest. Okay. So we have to write an algorithm to find the compound interest. Okay. Student, you must be knowing the formula of compound interest, right? So here we have to use the formula. Now what is the formula of compound interest? The formula of compound interest is your amount minus principal, right? Now what is the amount? The formula of amount is, I have just written it here, it is this: principal into 1 plus R by N. R is the annual interest rate. N is represent the compounding frequency or the number of times interest is compounded in a year, okay? And T is your number of years, okay? So this is my formula. Here A I am getting, so my compound interest is equal to A minus P, amount minus principal first, right? So here see, when I have to find out the compound interest, so what I have to find out? I have to find out the amount, and in amount, what are the inputs I require from the user? They have to provide me the principal value, they have to provide me the number of years, they have to provide me the rate of interest, and then they have to provide me the compounding frequency or the number of times interest is compounded in a year. Okay, so here what will be my first thing? Start. Always remember, first is start. So input, principal, rate of interest, what else? Then the number of years and the compounding frequency, correct? Okay, and the fourth is the compounding frequency we need. So right, store. Maybe we can write it here only directly. Input principal, store in P, rate of interest, store in R, then number of years, store in T, correct? And the compounding frequency, store in N. Okay, so these are my inputs. Now I have to calculate the amount. So calculate the amount as, so you have to write the formula. You just have to mention the formula. So we have to write P into, then P will be my capital, multiply by, in bracket you have to write 1 plus R by N. So you have to just write R by N, and then to the power R by N, and then we have to the power this. So it has to be to the power. So to the power. So while writing, you can just put that sign to the power, and then it will be N into T. Okay. Now calculate this and store the value in A. Okay. Now I have to calculate compound. So calculate compound interest as A minus P and store in CI. Okay, now print CI. and then you have stop. Got it? So this way we can write. Similarly, if you see the third, to find the area and the perimeter of a triangle, you have to first know what is the area of a what is the formula of the area of a triangle, right? So you know the formula of area of a triangle, it is half base into height, right? So here your input will be base and the height, right? So that you have to input, then you have to store them in b and h maybe, or any other variable you want, and then you have to calculate area is equal to half into b into h, store it in a variable maybe a or area, and then you have to print area. Similarly, you have to find the perimeter also. So in perimeter also you need to have the 3 sides you have to take as input, and then calculate all in sum, all the sides needs to be added, that will be a perimeter. Clear? Now this fourth one I'll explain you right now. Now how, see the same thing we did with the temporary variable, right? Swapping of two numbers. Now in the fourth one we will do the swap of two numbers without using a temporary variable. So how we can do that? Okay, now here if you have seen, when we were swapping using a temporary variable which was my c, but now I have to swap without using a temporary variable. So how we can do? Let's try to understand. Okay, now here what you have to do, this is simple, you just need to know the logic. So here suppose again I'll take the same example, a5 b9. Okay, now here if I do a is equal to a plus b, what does a become now? Tell me. A will be 14, correct? Now I'll tell here b is equal to a minus b. So what does this mean? A was my summation of both the numbers. So from this total summation, if I subtract b, that means I'm getting a. Is it clear or not? Right? Currently a is holding the value of a plus b. Now from that, if I subtract b, I get the value of a, which is getting stored in b. Is it clear? Right? So if I write b is equal to a minus b, that means I'll get the initial value of a. Initial value of a, not this changed one. Okay, clear? And then if I write a is equal to a minus b. Now see, in b now which value you are having? In b you are having now the a value, this value, correct? Now from a is my currently changed value is this, right? So from that if I subtract b, which is a value of a, I'll get the value of b, correct? Is it initial value? B, very initial value of b. Anyways, b we did not, yeah, so that will be the initial value of b, not this changed value. Is it clear, students? I know it's little confusing, but if you have to swap two numbers without using a third variable, so what you have to do, you have to first sum both the numbers, store it in a, then you do b is equal to a minus b. Why? Because a currently is what? Is the summation of both the numbers, right? From there if I subtract b, I will be getting a. Is it clear, right? So I'll be getting a, initial value of a I'll get. Similarly, if I subtract the complete a, which is your summation, with b, which is a new value of b. B is this v I am talking about. So if I subtract this, I'll get the a, right? Which is the initial value of b. Clear? Because this changed b will have a value of a, right? So if I do a minus b, it will be clear. So how should be your algorithm be? Let me just copy paste this only, this swap. So my algorithm will be start, input two numbers, store in variable a and b. We don't have to take this third now here. So it will be, I'll do process a is equal to a plus b. Okay. Next step will be again process B is equal to A minus B. Third step will be process A is equal to A minus B. Output A and B, correct? Now if you go step by step, let us input two numbers, which is maybe in A I input 4 and B I input maybe 7. Okay, now my third step is process A is equal to A plus B. Okay, now in third step my A will become what? Tell me. A is equal to A plus B, which will be equal to 4 plus 7, which is equal to 11, right? Now here in this step my A became 11. Now come to next step. Here B is equal to A minus B I am doing. So B will become what here for me? B minus A. A minus B I am doing, correct? A minus B. So here what is my A? Here what will be the A? A will be this value, right? What I am summing here, right? So A will be C, because A has turned out to be 11. So it will be 11 minus B still remains 7 here because I am not changed. So B will be 7. So I am getting 4, correct? Which is a value of A, see? Which gets stored in B now. Now in this step, process A is equal to A minus B. A is equal to A minus B. So here, tell me what A minus B. Here my A is what? A is my 11 still because I've changed here. So A is my 11. So 11 minus B. Now what is B here? B is not 7, right? I've changed the value in preceding step. So B is 4 here. So it will be 11 minus 4, which is equal to 7. Which is, so see, now A is having 7, which was the value of B. So see, fine, B is having 4, which was value of A. So I have swapped my two numbers without using the third variable. Clear? If you don't understand, please comment me. I'll try to make it more clear if it's not clear still. But I hope you all will understand. Now let's move on to a flowchart. Now what is a flowchart? Algorithm we saw, it's a step-by-step instruction, that step-by-step instructions that we write to solve any task or a problem, right? Now flowchart is the same step-by-steps that we have it, but in a pictorial form, in a graphical form. Okay, so flowchart is a pictorial representation of algorithm, graphical representation of algorithm. It shows the sequence of instruction in a program. Flowcharts are very helpful to understand and solve complex, complicated and lengthy problems. So to understand, so flowchart is very helpful to help us to understand, because see, if you have thousands lines of code, so going through each line and understanding, it's very tough. But if you have anything in a pictorial form or in a graphical form, it becomes very easy, right, to understand, right? So you can easily, flowchart help us to understand and solve complex, complicated, lengthy problems. Flowcharts are easy to explain to others also. They can understand the program easily. So flowcharts are very easy to explain to others, right? It's a graphical form, pictorial form, so it's very easy. Let's try to understand what are the different symbols used in flowcharts, okay? So as you know, in algorithm also we have start and stop. So similarly here also we have a start. So very first is the start, last is the stop. So this start and stop is indicated by this sign, this oval. Okay, so I have it drawn here. So this represents your start and stop box. Okay, symbol for. So now then you know, in a flowchart we have, in a flowchart or in algorithm we have the input, right? So the input box is your this. Okay, so this is your input or the output box. Clear? So that is your input or the output box. Here if you see, this is my input or the output box. Then we have the processing, right? So once you have the input, you have to process that. So my process box is this. Okay, so the processing box is this rectangle. Okay, so we know now the start box and the stop box, the oval, the input box and the output box and the processing box. Okay, now to connect each of this, we use the connectors or the flow lines. Okay, so these are the arrow ones. So to connect this, we use this. Now we have something called decision box also. So what is a decision box? Like in many of the algorithms, you have to take a decision, maybe, right? Like for that, when we were comparing two numbers, right? So we have to check if A is less than B. So there can be two outputs here, yes or no, right? So in these kind of things, we use decision box, where we have to take a decision and the output will be either yes or no. Then we use this decision box. Okay, and lastly we have the connectors. These connectors are basically used when you have a very big flow chart, like you have a flow chart here and then it's spanning around in the next page also. Then to connect that, connect from the end of one flow chart to the other, we use this connectors. Clear? Now so what are the different rules for drawing a flow chart? The flow chart should be very clear, neat and easy to follow. This is something which you can just go over and understand. It's very simple. The direction of the flow from left to right or top to bottom, it has to be clear, right? Only one flow line should come out of a process symbol. So from the process symbol, only one flow line should come, correct? Ensure that only one flow line enters a decision symbol, but two flow lines leave the decision box. Correct. In the decision box, only one flow line should be there, right? Like from top it should come, but here two should be output, right? Either yes or no, right? So two flow lines leave, but enter will be one only. Now ensure that the flow chart has a logical start and an end. You know that. So every flow chart or every algorithm should have a proper start and a stop. Clear? So these rules are very simple. Now the advantages of flowchart you can know, because it's a pictorial representation, so it's better understanding of a problem. You can easily understand, right? And it facilitates a programmer to analyze the problem in detail, correct? Now let's quickly move on to the different examples of flowchart, which will help you basically in your exam, right? So let's move on to that. Now see the first example, which is a very simple example, like flowchart to drink a glass of cold water. So here see one flowchart, one steps. The steps are given. The steps might vary also from people to people. Okay. Now to drink a glass of cold water, what start and stop always has to be there. See here everything should be in processing, because you're processing. No decision, nothing been taken. It's a simple processing boxes. No input we are taking here. So just go to the kitchen, take a clean glass. See this, take a clean glass, it's an input also. You could have put this in a, instead of processing, it could have been in an input box also. Now take out the water bottle from the refrigerator, pour water into the glass, drink the water, clean the glass, fill the bottle and keep it back in the refrigerator. So these steps depend on you. You can have these steps changed also. It's not necessary. We can have a different steps also of drinking a glass of cold water, right? Right, here they have added clean the glass, not necessary, you can write. So that depends on you, right? Now flowchart to calculate simple interest. See, this is very simple, right? You know what is the formula of simple interest? It is principal into rate into time divided by 100. That is your SI, right? So here what will be my all input will be P, R and T, principal, rate and time. So this I have taken it in, if you see I have taken it in input box, which is this rectangle, if you can see, tilted one. And then I have to process this. So SI I am calculating something, means you are processing something, so that will be in my rectangle. And then I will output print SI, right? This will be my output and then stop. Okay. Now the third flowchart is to add the first 100 natural numbers. So see, before we understand this flowchart, we have to understand the logic of how to do this. Okay, how you can add first 100 natural numbers. Let's see how we can do that. Okay students, so now let's try to understand the examples given in your book, okay, related to this. So we have understood the simple examples. Now these are little complicated but very simple if you understand, okay. So first we go with this flowchart. So you have to see flowchart drawing will be simple. First you have to understand the logic, then flowchart you can easily draw, okay. Now first let us try to understand the logic and then we'll go over the flowchart. Now we have to write a flowchart to add the first 100 natural numbers. First 100 natural numbers means 1 to 100. So we have to output 1. We have to do 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus so on and on till 100. So this is what we need to do. Correct? So you have to find the sum. You have to add the first 100 natural numbers. Now, how do we do that? See, if I take a variable, suppose a variable, take any variable, maybe sum, okay, and initially I put 0 in sum. There is nothing, just I'll make sum is equal to 0, okay. Now I will start generating my number from 1 till 100 and keep those number adding it, okay. I'll keep adding the number, okay. Now let me take, suppose I take a variable I where I will keep incrementing I one by one, okay, so that it goes from 1 till 100. So initially I'll put I is equal to 1. Clear? I put I is equal to 1, correct. Now what I will do, if I write sum is equal to sum plus I, my first step I'll do sum is equal to sum plus I. So first time when I is 1, what will my sum be? Sum will be equal to 0 plus I. Is it clear? It will be, right? 0 plus I, which is equal to 0 plus, instead of I let me take num, otherwise it's very confusing. It will be num. Okay, so it will be 0 plus num. Okay, now what is the value of num? It is 1. So it will become 0 plus 1. So my sum will become 1. Correct? Sum is 1. Now I will keep on incrementing sum. Now see my num is 1. Num I will use this variable to generate 1 to 100 number. Okay, num my initially is 1. I added this. Now I will make num is equal to num plus 1. See, num is equal to num plus 1. So what did num became here? Tell me. 1 plus 1. It will become 2, right? Because num is 1, I added 1 more, so it becomes 2. That is the second number of my series, correct? Now I will go up again. So my flowchart will be this, ki I will check, then I'll go up. Now once my num become 2, the second number of the series, I'll go back to this line again. Here again I will do sum plus num. Now what is sum, you tell me here? I'm not going to this line again, so this is not executed. Here my sum will be 0 plus 1. From the last it was 0 plus 1. Now I add num to it. Num is 2. So this becomes 0 plus 1 plus 2 now. Correct? Now again it came down to this line. Okay. See, these are the line numbers. Okay. Step number, you can say step 1. Okay. This is your step 2. This is your step 3. And this is your step 4. Now in step 4 again, now I am doing num is equal to num plus 1. Now num was my 2. So 2 plus 1, it will become 3 now, which is the third number in my series, right? Now I will again go up to step 3. Go to step 3. Okay, I'll go back to step 3 again. Now again sum is equal to sum plus num, correct? Now what is sum? Sum was this, right? Now here I will add num again. So this will become, now num was my 3, right? So this will become 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3. See, till here we have calculated. Clear? Now again it will come to step 4. Step 4 again I'll do num is equal to num plus 1. Num was 3 in the previous iteration. Now num become 3 plus 1, 4. Now here num becomes 4. Again it will go to step 3. Again it will do sum is equal to sum plus num. Num is 4 and sum is this complete addition. So it will become this entirely plus 4. So this way we'll keep on doing this num is equal to num plus 1 until when, see, it cannot go on till infinite, right? So here we need to have a check. So when it will go, so step 5 we will have a check. If num less than equal to 100, then go to step 3, else step 6. See, we have to go till 100 only. So till the time num is not equal to 100, you go to this step 3 again and again. But once you reach 100, we don't want it to continue further, right? So then you go to step 6, which is your next last step, step 6. Here I'll print sum, because sum will have my addition of all the first 100 natural number. Is it clear, students? You just need to understand how is it been done. Now let's see the flow chart. So see, all these steps that we are doing here, all these steps, sum is equal to 0, num is equal to 1, these are all processing we are doing, correct? There is no input output here. So these are all processing. So this all will go in your process box. But this checking num less than equal to 100, this is a checking we are doing, like decision, right? So this will go in your decision box, where you will have yes or no coming out. Okay, now let's understand the flowchart. Now see, in flowchart, first start, correct? Then sum is equal to 0 they have taken, and in here n is equal to 0 they have taken, I have taken num. It's the same thing, right? Any variable you can take. See, they have taken num is equal to 0 because they are, see, I took num as 1 because I just continue starting with that. But they have taken num is equal to 0. Why? Because they are doing the addition first and then they are doing this sum first. See, I'll just put this on. Wait. Yeah. Now see here, side by side I just kept so that you can verify. See here, sum 0. Num I took 1, not 0. Why? Because I am doing this addition after the summation, right? But they are doing the addition. So here in this step, their n is becoming 1 only, right? Correct? N will become 1 here, 0 plus 1, 1, right? So now they are doing sum is equal to sum plus n, that is 0 plus 1. Now they are checking is n less than greater than equal to 100. If it is yes, then you come out of the loop. If it is no, you will go back to this line again. Is it clear? Is this logic clear? Very clear how this works? So by this n you are generating the numbers 1 to 100, and in this sum we are doing the addition of, so one by one we are generating the numbers from 1 to 100. We will keep adding that to a variable, and this number that we are generating will check if it is greater than equal to 100. If it is greater than 100, then I'll come out of the loop. I don't have to go back again. But if it is still less than 100, I'll go back to this step again where I'll generate the second number, right? Is it clear? And the flowchart, see, these are all processing. These are all processing boxes. Now here you have a decision box here, correct? And then you have a printing something, that is output. So your C, this is your shape that we use for flowchart. Then finally stop. Clear? Well, good. Now let's see the fourth example. Flowchart to find the greatest of 3 numbers, basically, right? So you have 3 numbers. So 3 numbers we have to input from the users, and then we have to find which one is the greatest out of all these 3. Okay, so just think about the logic, how you can do that. Tell me. So you have 3 numbers, okay, A, B and C. So how will I check which is the greatest? So I'll first check if A greater than B. If this is yes, if it is yes, then I will check what? If A is greater than B, yes, then A greater than C. If this is also yes, that means A is the greatest. Correct? Similarly, if B is greater than A, if it is yes, then B greater than C. If yes, that means B is the greatest. Clear? Now, last is if C greater than A. Yes, we'll check. Then C greater than B. If yes, C is the greatest. This is simple, I think, right? Then I'll print it accordingly. So see here in your flowchart, that is what is done. See, they have first they have input the 3 numbers. See in an input box. Can you see the box? Then it's a decision. I have to check. If you're checking anything, it has to be decision box where yes and no should come. So here first thing they are checking is A greater than B. If it is yes, if A is greater than B, that means if it is yes, then I'll check is A greater than C. Yes means A is greater than both B and C, right? If yes, then I'll print A. Here what I'm checking, see, is A greater than B? Is A greater than B? If it is no, that means B is greater than A. Clear? So here I'm again checking is B greater than C. Now from this, if it comes out of here, that means B is greater than A, right? Now here I'm checking if B greater than C. If B is greater than C also, if it is yes, that means B is the greatest. I'll print B, correct? And if it is no, see, if both are no, that means C is the greatest. Is it clear? This is a very simple one. I don't think so. It's very complicated. They are just checking. Just see this yes and no. See, here they are checking if A greater than B. If it is yes, then they are checking if A greater than C. If it is yes, this is also a yes. That means A is the greatest. So they are printing A. But in this condition, if A is not greater than B, if it is no, if comes out here, that means B is greater than A. Now here they will check if B is greater than C. If it is yes, that means B is the greatest. Clear? But if it is no, that means C is greater than B. And here also if it comes out no, that means C is greater than A also. That means your C is the greatest. Clear? I hope this is clear, right? Please do comment me if you don't understand something. It's just the logic you need to understand, then you can easily construct your algorithm. Okay, now let's try to understand a few more examples given in your book. Okay, so now we have to write an algorithm and draw flowchart to calculate the factorial of a number. Now what is factorial of a number? Now see, the sum of a first 100 natural number was 1, 2, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, right? Now factorial of any number will be, now if my number is 7, suppose, factorial will be 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 5 into 6 into 7. So starting from 1 till the number I have to multiply. See, this program will be much similar to this program. Here we were adding the numbers till 100. 100 was given here fixed, but here we have to input the number from user. Until that number we have to go. The only difference is instead of summation, we have to do multiplication. So see, it will be the same as we have here. Here now, instead of sum 0, we cannot take 0, right? Because 0 into with 0, anything, it will always come 0, right? So here my sum, maybe my variable s will be equal to 1. Okay. And again, I'll take num to generate my number from 1 till that number, right? Now here my s is equal to s into num. Okay, then I'll okay, let me bring this. Yeah. Okay, now here I'll again increment num is equal to num plus 1. Correct? I'll check if num less than equal to the number entered by user, the number entered by user. If it is less than, go to step, maybe this is, suppose this is my step 5, okay, so it will go back to this step, go back to step 5. So here see, student, are you getting? It's very simple. So I'm taking s is equal to 1 initially, num will be my 1, num I'm using to generate the numbers from 1 till that input number, right? So suppose user enter this number in L maybe, huh? So here in step, here I'm doing s is equal to s into num. So first time it will be s is 1, num is 1, so it will be 1 into 1, correct? That is equal to 1 only, right? Now I'm incrementing num by 1 plus 1, so num becomes 2 here. Now I'm checking if num is less than this 7. Yes, it is still less than, then I go to this step again, okay? Here now my s, because I have put s is equal to this, so now my s becomes 1 here. So 1 into num is 2, so it will be 1 into 2. Now s will become 1 into 2, correct? Now I'm incrementing num again, so num is 3 now. So again it will check it is less than 7, less than equal to, again it will go to this line. Now here s is here 1 into 2, num is 3, so it will be 1 into 2 into 3. Again num will become 4, again it will check, again it will go up, so now it will be 1 into 2 into 3 into 4. So understood how it goes? So this way we can find the factorial, okay? Now let's see here how it has written. Let me put this also. Okay, so yeah, see my programming. So see here, start, step 1 algorithm, step 1 start, then step 2 read the number, then you initialize to 1, I is equal to 1, fact is equal to 1. So here their I is my num and their fact is my s. Any variable you can take, that doesn't matter, right? So here in the first step only they are checking if I is less than equal. You can have this check below also, you can have it this check above also, it doesn't matter, right? So check if I is less than, so this I which is we will keep on incrementing, so I'm checking if this is less than equal to the number entered, because I have to go till that number only, right? If it is, then you repeat steps 5 and 6 if it is less than, until I is equal to n, it will go on and on. See here again, fact is equal to fact into I, and then I is equal to I plus 1 they are doing, and they are doing this again, this will go again and again, and then finally they print the fact. Similarly, the way you will do your flowchart, just remember your any calculations that we are doing or any initialization we are doing, that will all be in process box. Input and output will be your in this box, and your decision that we are taking yes and no, that will be in this box. Clear? Now let's go to this last example. I think this is very simple. You just need to find out whether a given number is odd or even. So I'll read a number from user in n, suppose. Now I'll do check if n mod 2. N mod 2, see, this is a sign we use to find the remainder. So if I write n mod 2, that means it will give me the remainder when you divide n with 2. Okay, so we use this sign. So if this remainder is 0, that means it's an even number, means it's divisible by 2. And if it's not 0, that means it's not divisible by 0, it will be an odd number, right? So see, the same thing they have written. Check if n mod 2 is equal to 0. If it is equal to, that means no remainder when you divide by 2, then it will print number is even. Else print number is odd. The same way the flowchart is also been drawn. Start, then input box, then this is a decision box, yes, no, right? If n mod 2 is equal to 0, if it is yes, print number, if it is no, will print, and then finally both comes to stop. Clear? I hope it's clear. Now the entire chapter we have covered. Now these examples we have already covered when we are doing the algorithms. We can quickly see these examples also. These are very simple examples, right? Start a computer. You can have a different algorithm or different steps to start a computer. Like the first step maybe first step will always be start. In second step, maybe switch on the plug point, right? Third step will be switch on the computer. Then fourth step might be like input the username and the password they ask generally, right? So enter the password, right? And this is a way we can start a computer. That's a step, right? This all will be in processing box because there is no input and output we are taking. Everything will be in process box. Now calculate the area of a circle. You know what is an area of a circle, right? The formula pi r square, I remember. So you have to input radius from the user. So your one input will be radius, correct? So you will input radius, so that will be in your input output box. And then processing will be, you will do pi into r square. So it will be pi value, whatever be the pi value, 3.14, that into r, whatever r into r. R is your radius which you have inputted from the user, correct? Correct. So step 1 will be your start. Step 2 will be your enter the radius of the circle. Then step 3 will be calculate area is equal to 3.14, sorry I wrote 31, 3.14 into r, correct? And then step 4 will be your print area, correct? The same thing, you just need to put it in the flowchart form. I just wrote the algorithm. And then step 5, don't forget stop. That is very important, right? Start and stop. So here if you see your flowchart, this will be start box, this is stop box. Here you will have the input output box. Here you will have the processing box. Here again the input output box. Clear? Now similarly with convert temperature from Fahrenheit to Celsius, so you need to know the formula what is there, that you can find it out in Google, whatever the formula is. So you have to input what? From Fahrenheit to Celsius. So you have to enter you have to ask user input the temperature in Fahrenheit. Then you have to just put the formula and convert that to Celsius and print it. This is also simple, right? Calculate simple interest. This is already given in your book. The example was already given, right? Correct. I think if you remember simple interest, yeah, this is already given the flowchart, correct? Now the last one is your calculate the perimeter of a rectangle, right? Now perimeter of a rectangle, you know what it is, 2 into length plus breadth. So now tell me what should be the step. So step 1 will be always start. Step 2, what is my input here? Length and breadth. So enter the length and breadth of the rectangle, right? In L and B, okay? Or maybe enter the length in L and breadth in B of the rectangle, okay? So that my step 2 input. And step 3, I'll calculate the area or perimeter they want, right? So maybe I'll take a variable as peri is equal to 2 into, I'll write here calculate, correct? Calculate peri is equal to 2 into L plus B, correct? Step 4 will be print peri, and then your step 5 will be stop. This is the algorithm I have written. You can draw the flowchart. This start and stop will be in your start and stop box, which is an oval. Then your this calculate will be in your process box, which is a rectangle. And this step 2 and step 4, which is the input and output, will be in your input and output box, which is this one, correct? Clear? So I hope all these examples also have covered and it's clear. So all the best. I think if there is still any doubt, please comment me and I'll help you all. Thank you.